Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm so glad you could join me for this holiday candy cane tutorial, which we're going to be doing in acrylics, and I will show you how to create step by step. We're going to start with an outline. You can use my exact same outline by downloading it on Ko-fi. I'll leave the link to that below. I'm using Canson Canva paper for this because it's really easy to use and fairly inexpensive. We've got 2 glasses of water for clean and dirty waters to rinse our brushes off. I will be using this 6-pack of golden acrylics, professional grade, and a paper towel. I prefer shop towels from Walmart Automotive, a clear plastic palette, and a medium flat, and small round paintbrush. We're going to start with black paint, white paint, blue paint, yellow, green, and red, and you can use any brand for these. We're just going to be mixing them, and if you prefer different colors you can use those as well. Starting out with the larger of our flat brushes, I think this one is 1/2 inch, and we're going to use the white paint to cover the entire candy cane portion. I always dump my brush in the water first. This helps the paint to flow a little bit more easily and will delay the drying on our bristles so we can work a little bit longer. Working quickly so that it doesn't dry out on us. And by the way, this is my first tutorial, which is completely overdubbed. I have been trying different approaches to tutorials to try to find something that will please as many people as possible, and I've gotten a lot of requests for videos without music and just speaking, so that's what I'm trying to do today. If there's a particular type of tutorial you enjoy and would like to see more of, please let me know in the comments. I'm always trying to improve my videos, and let me know if this is a better way to do my videos. I enjoy reading your comments and I welcome constructive feedback because I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm trying to make this the best channel it can possibly be. Thank you in advance. Okay, now that we've kind of covered up our candy cane with white, it's about time to start adding some shadows. So I'm going to add a little bit of the blue into the white with my paintbrush here, and we'll start to create some shadows on the lower side, the lower angles of our candy cane. I'm using one edge of my paintbrush. In retrospect, I should have switched to the smaller of my 2 flats for this, but I was trying to make it a little bit easier for y'all by using one as long as possible. So if you feel like this one is too large, by all means scale down for this. Let's blend that shadow with a bit of white, going over that transition while it's still wet. Doesn't have to be completely smooth. We can hide any problem areas with the stripes later on. I'm going to be imagining that we have a light source that's kind of coming from the top of the page for most of these things, although we're not being terribly exact for this tutorial. At the moment I'm just trying to smooth out that angle with the shadow. If you're not happy with your shadows or anything with the first layer too, don't worry, you can always let it dry and come back over the top with another layer. That's the beauty of acrylics and other opaque mediums, is that you can continue to layer as you go. It doesn't have to look perfect the first time. Took off the excess paint on my paper towel, and although I did not wash off the paintbrush, I went back with white so that we can blend these 2 colors together. Just going back and forth over that color transition to smooth it out all the way up and down. Rinsing the brush off. Take off excess water on the paper towel, and then let's go back in with some white and try to clean up these ragged edges on some of our blends. Alright, rinse off that paintbrush, swap to your smaller flat, and start in with the green paint on the leaves. We're just going to cover each leaf in a flat layer of green paint. You can watch me do it to the first 2 leaves, but I will speed up through the final 3 so that the video isn't too long. Let me know if you prefer videos in real time or to have the boring, quote unquote boring bits sped up, because it's always a struggle for me to know how much to include or not when a video is quite long. Just filling in that outline as well as possible, but doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be adding more layers on top of this. Okay, now we're going to go in and create the stripes. So rinsing off the green paint, obviously, go back in with the same smaller flat brush, and we will create some stripes on our candy cane, which should be dry by this point. If it is not, then you can either go away and have a cup of coffee and come back, or tea, or dry it with a hairdryer. If the candy cane is still wet, if the underlayers are wet at this point, then we'll just create a lot of pink. We want these to be super, super bright stripes because they're so pretty. Again, I'm going to speed up through this to try to keep the video as short as possible. As you get towards the top of the candy cane, you will want the outer edges of your stripes to be wider and the inner stripes to be narrower. This will create stripes that bend more easily. Going in with some blue paint to give the stripes a bit of a shadow, just as we did to the white portion, only these will need to be darker, of course. I put in a few shadows at a time, but then go in to blend them all before they dry, hopefully. These were drying very quickly today. I'm painting here in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, so my acrylics dry very, very quickly. It's very arid here. For people in more humid climates, your paints may stay wet longer. Finish blending out those shadows on our candy cane, and then we will rinse out our brush and start in some shadows on our leaves. Going in with some plain black just to give us a bit of a stem going on the holly a little bit. Using the same brush, just the extreme edge of it so we get that tiny little line. And I'm not using much pressure at all here. If you find your paint is kind of sticky and not flowing well, you might want to add a little bit more water to your paintbrush. That will help it to move around a little bit more accurately and precisely. It's always a good rule of thumb to make your stems a little bit skinnier than you think you'll need, because as we add highlights, etc., they have a tendency to expand, and it's harder to shrink them afterwards. Adding a little white to my stems while they're still wet for just a hint of highlight to give them a bit of form. We don't want flat stems. These are definitely not highly detailed. We don't need that, especially with motifs like this. Our brains will just complete the rest of the picture by themselves. And the white will mix with the wet black paint to create a nice muted gray. Rinsing the white off of our brush now. And then we're going to create some shadows on the leaves themselves. Sorry, I'm trying to do this as best as I can without putting my hand over the leaf, but it's kind of difficult. I'm starting with my paintbrush angled up against that main stem area, and then I flick backwards, releasing pressure as I approach the edge of the leaf, so that way we get that uneven edge. You don't want too much paint on your brush for this. And then on the other side of the leaf, we're going to shade more of the pointed areas. Remember to keep an eye on where your light source is shining from. And then again, we can use the green paint to blend those shadows back into the original color a little bit. This is not our final layer on the leaves, so don't worry if it's kind of rough and imperfect. We can always fix it later. So whichever side of the main stem you shade, on the opposite side of the leaf, you will shade the outside. Imagine these leaves curving away from the sunlight. Because holly leaves are quite curvy most of the time. And again, we're going to flick that shadow away from the central stem. Give us a kind of organic texture to the shadow. Just lift off pressure as you get away from the, not stem, vein, sorry. I've been calling it a stem, it's a vein. And then shading the outer edge of the side of the leaf that's away from the sunlight. Go in with the green paint to blend. I'm being very loose in general, not going for precision at all. This should be fun. Think holiday fun. This motif can be used full size like I'm doing here. I originally designed it for holiday cards, greeting cards. You can do that. You can print it on things. There are many things that this kind of a design could be useful for. And then I'm going to speed through the other two leaves because you probably got the picture by this point. Don't forget to increase the shadows a little bit where that one leaf goes underneath the other, and I also shaded the backs of these leaves a little bit more to give the idea that the candy cane itself is casting a shadow on the holly. Right now I am mixing my yellow into my green to make a nice warm middle green color. We're just going to warm up the sides of the leaves that are getting more sunlight. So basically the opposite areas we just did with the shadows, we're going to add this warmer green to create even more depth. So the opposite side of the vein gets a lot of that yellow green, and the opposite edge is getting the yellow green. Basically just the reverse of what we just did with the black. You can blend with the plain green as well. This you can do either when the leaves are completely dry or if they are still wet. I think I had a little bit of both going on with these. I'm using very little of this middle green that we've just mixed. We're just sort of hinting that that area is getting more sunlight. I'm assuming it's the sun. Could be a lamp or something. Candlelight would be cool. And I'm going to speed up the rest of this again. Let me know if you prefer full-length videos or not. Let's just create a little bit of a highlight as well. So very, very light application of plain white paint to give us some bright spots on these leaves. Adds texture and shine. Just very light pressure, dragging my brush to give it that sense of texture. I often take paint and then dab it off on my paper towel for things like this so I don't accidentally put a giant glob on. It's a softly, softly approach. By using the edge of our paintbrush like this, we can give the illusion of more veins in our holly leaves. We can also touch up that center vein with a little bit of white if we've accidentally painted over a little bit. Give it a sense of highlight as well. Just punch up that contrast. Switching now to my small round brush so that we can do some holly berries. Moisten the brush first, take out the excess on your paper towel, and then go into that red. Hopefully your green is dry at this point. If not, you'll want to dry it. And we're just going to add a couple red circles here and there. This is an excellent opportunity to hide things if you really are unhappy with certain areas of your leaves. We can strategically place berries to cover that, although we should keep them clustered somewhat close to the center stem, just because that's more believable. You can add as many or as few berries as you like. This is partly why I did not include them in the outline for those of you who downloaded my outline and are following the tutorial. This is to give you the freedom to place berries where and how you wish. Now I've added a little bit of blue to my dirty brush with the red so that we can create a bit of a shadow on our berries. I'm just going in a C shape on the side that is facing away from our light source. So just a simple C shape. We will blend this in a minute with a little bit of blue mixed in with our red. Now we can go in with some plain red to beef up the tone of our berries and blend the shadow a little bit more. If you have any sections where the leaves are showing through, this will help to cover that up a bit. Make them super bright and pretty. You can repeat these steps as often as you need to in order to get the correct red and shape for your berries, depending on how much paint you have underneath them, or how transparent your set of acrylics are. Now it's time to allow our berries to dry, and we can add a highlight to our candy cane itself. Swapping back to our smaller flat brush, we'll go in with some white. You may need to add a little bit of water to your brush so that it goes on smoothly. And we will just put a thin line of white down the entire length of the candy cane towards the sunlight, so off to the side where the sun would be shining on it. This is the opposite side that our shadows are on. If your white is pretty transparent, you can repeat this step a couple times until it's as bright and opaque as you desire. I'm going to touch up some of these areas where the stripes are showing through a bit too much. And now we'll rinse off our brush and start in with some yellow paint to add the sprigs in the background. Again, I'll use very little pressure using the extreme edge of my brush to create these very thin sprigs. This is an excellent opportunity to fix any problems in the composition that you may be experiencing and rebalance it. You can have them poking out at any direction. Again, I did not include these in the outline that you can download if you're following my exact outline, so that you can have the freedom of placing these sprigs wherever you feel like they are needed. You can add more or fewer. It's totally up to you. I'm adding mine just for interest and diversity of color and just to balance out the weight of the composition a little bit. We're adding little thin lines going out from the center of the stems. These will hold the little berries. I think this would look super cool if I had actually had metallic gold paint and it was all shiny. Let me know if you'd like to see that. If you have any metallic gold paint and you create this tutorial yourself, please tag me in it or send me a picture because I would love to see how it works. I don't have any myself, although I would love to do that someday. And yeah, if you happen to follow my tutorial, if you use my outline, be sure to tag me when you post about it or send it to me via my social links or email. I would love to see what you've come up with, especially if you've gone off and made the idea your own a little bit, put your own twist on it. Please hit me up. I want to see. All right, cleaning off that brush, going back to the small round brush, same yellow paint. We're going to put a little tiny berry on the end of that little stem thing. And now we will rinse our brush off and prepare to do some highlights on our berries. Using the same small round brush, we're going to go in with some white and just put in 2 little dots on the sunward side of each berry. Now we have a light and a middle and a dark tone on each berry, which will give us a nice sense of depth. The highlights will go on the opposite side of the shadows. And then we will be done with our painting. Thank you so much for following along with this tutorial. It was a blast to make. And for those of you who are following along, I can't wait to see what you come up with. Please send me your pictures. As always, thank you for coming. Happy holidays and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.